The night of labor was long, the pain tearing it apart until she thought she would die with every scream. Sweat drenched her body, tears blurred her vision, and her trembling hands clutched the sheets as doctors and nurses rushed around her. And then a cry, sharp, new, alive. Her world stopped. The nurse placed the tiny bundle in her arms, and for the first time since Taehyung's death, it felt whole again. The baby's skin was soft, his eyes tightly shut, his lips forming the smallest pout. A boy, her son, Taehyung, she whispered, pressing trembling kisses to the child's forehead. He's here. Our baby's here. You're a father, my love. Even if you're not here to see him, he's yours. For days, she refused to let go of him. She rocked him to sleep, fed him through sleepless nights, and clutched him to her chest as though her own heartbeat could shield him from the cold world outside. Every tear she had cried over Taehyung now turned into whispers of promises for their child. For weeks past, her body ached, but her heart beat with new purpose. She no longer cried herself to sleep, because the sound of her baby's soft breathing filled the emptiness beside her. He was all she had left of Taehyung, all she needed. But she didn't see the shadows moving behind her. On the fourth week, the storm finally struck. It happened so suddenly. Minji entered the room with Yujin, their smiles to calm, to controlled. Mr. and Mrs. Kim followed close behind, their eyes hard, avoiding In's gaze. In stood protectively in front of the crib, her body stiff. What's going on? Minji's voice was soft, almost too soft. In, it's time. The baby needs a family who can raise him properly. Yujin and we will take care of him. In froze, her heart slamming in her chest. What are you saying? He's my son, Taehyung's son. Mr. Kim's voice cut through, cold and sharp. He is a Kim. He belongs to this family. You were never meant for this life. You will only ruin him. No, In cried, clutching her baby to her chest as tears streamed down her face. He's mine. Taehyung's blood is in him, and he's mine, please. Don't take him away from me. But her screams meant nothing. Yujin's grip was iron as he pried the baby from her trembling arms. The child's cries pierced the room, echoing her own. Please, don't do this. Please. Minji held the baby close, her smile breaking into tears that weren't grief but triumph. I'll raise him, In. Don't worry. I'll raise him like he's my own. In fell to her knees, her body shaking, her screams tearing through the mansion walls. The picture of Taehyung on the nightstand stared back at her silently while their child, their last piece of love, was carried away. That night, the Kim mansion swallowed her sobs, her pleas, her shattered soul, and In realized she had lost everything. In fell to her knees, her body shaking, her screams tearing through the mansion walls. The picture of Taehyung on the nightstand stared back at her silently while their child, their last piece of love, was carried away. That night, the Kim mansion swallowed her sobs, her pleas, her shattered soul, and In realized she had lost everything. The mansion was no longer a home, it was a prison. After the baby was taken, In's world collapsed into darkness. The child who had given her reason to breathe was now just down the hall, but he might as well have been 1,000 miles away. She could hear him sometimes, faint cries in the night, but the sound was muffled by heavy doors and heavier rules. The Kims made sure she knew her place. No longer the wife of their mafia king, no longer the mother of the heir. To them, she was nothing. A maid in her own home, a servant with no rights. The Kims made sure she knew her place. No longer the wife of their mafia king, no longer the mother of the heir. To them, she was nothing. A maid in her own home, a servant with no rights. They handed her chores with cold commands. She scrubbed floors with trembling hands, washed dishes while tears slid down her cheeks, carried laundry with an aching back still healing from childbirth. Every task stripped away another piece of her dignity. And yet, she endured, because she knew her son was here. A week later, they summoned her. Her heart pounded as she entered Minji's lavish room, where her baby lay in a golden crib. Taehyung, her Taehyung. Her knees buckled at the sight of him, bigger than before, his tiny hands curling into fists, his soft lips parting with little breaths. 5 minutes, Minji said sweetly, her voice like venom hidden in honey. In didn't care, she rushed forward, tears already streaming, scooping her baby into her arms as though her soul had been returned to her body. She pressed desperate kisses across his face, his forehead, his tiny fingers. My baby, my sweet boy, she sobbed, rocking him as though 5 minutes could make up for a week of emptiness. Her lips trembled as she whispered, Mama's here. Mama never left. I'm so sorry, Taehyung. I couldn't protect you. Please, forgive me. Her tears soaked his blanket as she inhaled his newborn scent, the only thing keeping her heart alive. She clung to him, desperate, as though time could be stopped by sheer will. But time was merciless. Enough, Mrs. Kim's cold voice echoed. Hands pried him from her arms. Her screams tore through the room as she reached out, clawing at the air, begging, pleading. But the baby was already back in Minji's arms. 5 minutes, that was all they gave her. In collapsed to the floor, her hands shaking, her chest heaving with sobs. The picture of Taehyung she clutched every night flashed in her mind. If you were here, they would never dare. But he wasn't here, and she was alone. Every week, they repeated the same cruelty. For 5 minutes, she was a mother. For the rest of the days, she was a maid. Her lips kissed him with desperation. Her arms held him with trembling strength, and when they ripped him away, she died a little more each time. The absence of Taehyung was a wound that never healed, but the absence of her baby's warmth was a curse that killed her slowly. And yet, she endured, for him, for Taehyung. For the small hope that one day, somehow, she would have him back. God, I am crying writing this crap. 2 months of living like a ghost in her own home. 2 months of scrubbing floors with trembling hands while her body still ached from childbirth. 2 months of waiting for her 5 precious minutes, only to have them ripped away. They had found new ways to torture her. Each week, they demanded perfection. Each week, they found an excuse, a thread of dust left on the stairs, a cup not polished enough, salt too heavy in the food, and each time, they canceled her 5 minutes. It was the 3rd week in a row. No Taehyung, no touch. No breath of his scent to keep her alive. In's eyes were empty now, as if someone had taken a cloth and wiped away the spark inside her. Her tears still fell, but they were silent, dull. She had stopped begging. She had stopped speaking. That night, she trudged down the long hallway to her room, her feet dragging against the carpet. She was still wearing the faded clothes they gave her, her hair tied back hastily. Every step felt heavier than the last. She reached her room, closed the door behind her, and pressed her back against the wood. Her hands trembled as she reached for the switchboard, her fingers brushing the cold plastic. Darkness pressed in around her like a living thing. And then a hand caught hers, warm, large, familiar. Before she could scream, another hand covered her mouth, firm but gentle. Her heart slammed against her ribs, her body stiffening in panic as the scent of leather and smoke filled her lungs. And then a whisper, deep, melodious, a voice carved into her bones. Missed me, wifey? Her eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. That voice, that deep, unshakable voice, the one she heard in her dreams, the one she whispered to her son about when no one could hear. No, it couldn't be. Slowly, the hand left her mouth. She turned, trembling, her eyes lifting to the shadowed face in the dark. The outline was unmistakable, the broad shoulders, the sharp jaw. The eyes that burned even in the dim light. Taehyung. She breathed, her voice breaking like glass. I'm back, he whispered again, his voice low, dangerous. and warm all at once. And I'm never leaving you again, and stared at him, her chest rising and falling in ragged breaths. Her fingers trembled where they hung by her sides, tears stung her eyes, but refused to fall. No, she whispered, her voice hoarse. You're not real. You're just another illusion. Another dream. She stepped back until her spine hit the wall. Her nails dug into her palms as she shook her head over and over. I've seen you 100 times like this, in the dark. You hold me, you whisper, and then I wake up and you're gone. Taehyung didn't speak. He only stood there, watching her with those eyes that burned like coals in the shadows. His jaw flexed, his fists tight at his sides. You're not real, she said again, her voice breaking now. You died. They told me you died. You left me. You left me alone. With her voice cracked completely, tears spilling down her face. He moved closer. One step, another, his boots silent against the carpet. She pressed herself harder into the wall, shaking her head, sobbing now. Don't come closer. Don't ruin this for me, please. If you're not real. Don't touch me. Please don't. He was in front of her now, so close she could feel the warmth of his body in the cold room. His hand lifted, slow, trembling, the first tremble she had ever seen from Kim Taehyung, and he cupped her face. His palm was warm, calloused, real. Her breath hitched, her eyes fluttering shut. He murmured, his voice low and rough, "Look at me." She opened her eyes, and then he kissed her. It wasn't a soft kiss. It was a hard, desperate, aching kiss. Months of silence, pain, longing, and rage poured into one moment. His mouth claimed hers, not with gentleness, but with a hunger that shook her to her core. His hands framed her face, his thumb catching her tears as he deepened the kiss, forcing her to feel the truth of him. Her knees weakened, her fists clutched at his shirt, trembling, feeling the fabric, the heat of his chest beneath. His scent surrounded her, leather, smoke, and Taehyung real, solid, alive. When he finally pulled back, her breath came in fast, shallow gasps. Her wide eyes searched his face, his scars, his lips. You're real, she whispered. You're really here. Her vision blurred, the shock and disbelief crashing over her in one wave. Her body went limp, her eyes closing as she fell forward. Taehyung caught her before she could hit the floor, pulling her into his arms as though she weighed nothing. Her head rested against his shoulder, her tears soaking his shirt. He looked down at her, his expression unreadable, his jaw clenched tight. He brushed her hair from her face with a trembling hand, whispering low enough only she could hear, "I'm back, wifey, and no one will hurt you again." He held her tighter as she lay unconscious in his arms, her body fragile against his. For the first time since he had left, Kim Taehyung let his eyes close, breathing her in. The storm had returned home. Taehyung lay her carefully on the bed, the same bed that had been theirs. For a moment he just looked at her, the light from the lamp spilling over her face as he reached out and turned it on. His breath caught. This was not the woman he had left behind. His wife, his queen, was wearing faded, shapeless clothes. Her once glowing skin was pale, her frame so light he'd lifted her like paper. The dark circles under her eyes were heavy bruises, the spark in her gaze long gone. He frowned, confusion knotting his features. "What happened to you, and did you do this to yourself because of me?" "Because of my death," the thought burned. He dipped his fingers into the glass of water on the nightstand and sprinkled it gently across her face. She stirred, her lash fluttering. Slowly, she opened her eyes, unfocused at first, then widening as they landed on him. You're really here," she whispered, her voice cracked and soft. "Yes," he said, his voice low but steady. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." He helped her sit up slowly, his hand steadying her trembling frame. She reached for him like a drowning person finding air, wrapping her arms around him tightly, too tightly, as if she feared he would dissolve if she let go. He pulled back just enough to cup her face, his thumb brushing the wetness from her cheeks. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. She blinked up at him, her eyes red. Then, suddenly, she wiped her tears and pushed herself up, her hands gripping his. Come with me, she said, her voice urgent. You're back now. We can get him back. We can take care of him. Taehyung's brow furrowed, confusion darkening his features. Where, please, she begged, tugging at his hand. Come, tell them to return him to me. We can take him now. We can be together. He stared at her, the weight of her words sinking like a stone. Who in? What are you talking about? Her breath broke on a sob. She clutched his shirt with shaking fingers, her forehead pressing into his chest. Please, let's get our son. He froze. Completely, the world seemed to go silent around him. Son, his voice was almost a whisper. She lifted her face, tears streaming. She nodded, desperate. Yes, our baby, Taehyung, they took him from me. I begged and begged, but they only gave me 5 minutes a week. He's yours, Taehyung, he's ours, please. She hugged him again, crying so hard her body shook in his arms. Taehyung couldn't move. The words echoed in his skull. A son, he was a father. He had a child he had never seen, a child his wife had suffered to protect. Slowly, his arms wrapped around her, his hands pressing to her back as he stared over her shoulder, his eyes dark with shock and something rising inside him, rage, guilt, and a dangerous, consuming fire. He had a son, and they had taken him.